When I was speaking about having this sense of awareness being 360, and if the thought was like, I don't know what he's talking about, then write it down and just sit with it. What does it mean to have 360 awareness? What does it mean to turn awareness upon itself? And of course, I don't want you writing a philosophical answer. I want you to sit with it and see what if you can find the truth of that experience within yourself. We all have very much the same experience. We all go through the same things. That's one of the very humbling and incredibly beautiful things on the path. When you're on the path long enough, when you meditate long enough, you begin to realize, oh yeah, like everything is within me. Everything. Sri Aurobindo, he really emphasized this, that every aspect of the species, war, violence, heartache, despair, depression, anxiety, all of it, it's like literally in our DNA. Scientists, they used to say that, there's just these 4 little strands of DNA that put together make your, make you look the way you are and, be the way you are. And they used to call the rest of the strands just like junk. And what they're finding now in science is that, oh no, your ancestors' thoughts, their memories, their psychology is literally encoded in that. There's times when I'll be sitting and I'll have a thought that, my ancestors had. And I see it, I'll say, what is this? What is this thing arising in me? And it's something from, something far away in the past. And so, all of us have this similar experience of being human. And so don't hold back a question. Don't think it's too silly or that you need to be shy or should be embarrassed. It's, Aaron asked me on break, have I ever fallen asleep during meditation? Like, what's that about? And I laughed. I was like, 25 years? Hell no, I've never fallen asleep once. I'm always just in a complete state of utter and absolute non-dual awareness. Yeah, no, absolutely. Sometimes I would just spend months. I'd close my eyes and just, and do it, just doing the nodding. And one of the things that that sleepiness is, besides just being like, gosh, I didn't sleep last night, is it's another form of resistance. And in no way do I ever want the word resistance to be taken or thought of as a dirty word. Within our humanity, just the egoic structure and just the nature of the species is it tends to repeat itself again and again and again. And then occasionally there's an opportunity for it to take a leap. And so the idea on the path is if we want it to go quickly, we're kind of on the team where we're wanting to take a leap. But, even with like knowing how to drive a car, it's important that your mind can repeat functions again and again to the point of them just solidifying to the background where you don't even think about driving a car or brushing your teeth or how to act in public. And so it's helpful to have a psychology that repeats itself, but it's also helpful to have an inner psychology that's flexible as well. And so the big thing with when we get sleepy during meditation, or just in life in general, oftentimes we're losing energy, somewhere. And so it can be an unconscious fight. I can remember, I spent maybe 8 years of my life knowing I needed to get divorced. I think I even got divorced, but me and my former wife, because we had children, we didn't separate. And so, I stayed in it because of the children, and I was trying to, be helpful for them through staying in it, which wasn't always the best plan. But I had this inner war going on in my head, just like this inner turmoil. And so I had chronic fatigue. I had this heaviness. I walked around with guilt. And it made me tired in my meditations. It made me tired in life. And so sometimes, I would sit down and I would just feel this numb pain of guilt and heartache and despair. Because, when you're a father, when you're a parent, and you're in a relationship that's not working, and you have to look at, breaking up a family, nobody wants to do that. No one wants to go through that. And so the ego tends to try to micromanage the whole experience. And the way it micromanaged it in me was, let's just keep staying and keep showing up and keep trying and, see what happens. But it wasn't the truth. And so when we step out of alignment with truth, we can get really angry, we can get really sad, we can get frustrated, but we can also get really sleepy. Really sleepy. I think, I'm going to repeat a story. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but let me see if I can get it. Yeah, so there was this teacher, Jakusho Kwong. So he was Ajah's teacher, was one of his teachers. And so the student came, to be with Jakusho, and it was like a family day. It was like some kind of Buddhist ceremony where the whole family shows up. And, the student was so happy to be there, and he brought his parents, and his parents said, "Oh, I really loved being here, but I could not stay awake. I could not stay awake." And Kwong, he just said this very interesting thing. He said, "Yeah, that's what happens sometimes when we come into contact with truth. And not in a judgmental way, not in a mean way, but, I think the father just kind of laughed, but, he would sit there and just kind of fall asleep." And so when we step into something new, like a new energy, and our consciousness doesn't understand it and can't put it in a box that makes sense to it, sometimes it'll just kind of fall asleep, and we'll start to nod. And so for many years, with my teacher David, he transmitted such a powerful energy to us. And oftentimes, when the energy would first come into the room, many of us would fall asleep. We wouldn't understand what it was. And then after we sat with it, for 3 or 4 meditations, all of a sudden we would realize, oh, there's something here. Something quite incredible here. So sometimes it's that, when we step into a new world, our inner consciousness doesn't understand it yet and can get a little sleepy. So that's a common thing. And having an inner fight, like when I was going through that struggle I was telling you about, I felt like I was bleeding literally out of my kidneys, like out of my lower back. I just walked around, I felt like I had 8,000 pounds of weight around my waist. And if you look at the waist and the second chakra, that tends to be family and relationship issues. And so I was losing all this energy, and I knew it. I knew that's what was happening, but I said, but I'm not going to change. I'm going to keep on doing this stupid thing that I am doing because I'm trying to stay in it for my children. and it caused pain for me, and then I thought it was helping the family, but of course it didn't. And so we tend to wake up inside when we come more directly in alignment with the truth. With the truth. And so a great question, like if we are falling asleep during meditation, besides like, do I need to take a nap? Like, do I need to take care of myself? Is there something here that I see that I don't want to see? And this is shadow work. Like, is there something here that I see, but I don't want to look there, and so I kind of like look over there or something when it's like, hey, and we just keep looking over there. Through the active act of avoidance, we become sleepy. And so it's a beautiful question. And so, one of these great questions to sit with is there something I know that I don't want to know? Is there something I'm actively avoiding? Is there something I know I need to be doing, but am not? Is there some truth that's right here, looking me in the eyes, and I keep like looking over there, just wishing that this wasn't the truth? Because how the ego is, it's always wants the easy way out, and but see, on this path of evolution, God, life, the universe does not want you to take the easy way out. But the funny thing is when you take the hard path, the direct path, once you step into it fully, then everything becomes really easy. So it's kind of a paradox. It's kind of a paradox. Like the ego thinks, well, if I just keep avoiding, then the thing will disappear or whatever it is. But it normally doesn't. Like with me, I developed some weird virus sickness that I would get like every couple weeks. I'd be getting sick because I was avoiding the truth. And then when I stepped into the truth, funny thing is that, mystery virus disappears. And so, yeah, it's a great question. A great question. So a good thing to pay attention to is anywhere, within the 7 chakras, is there tightness there? Is there tightness? Now, of course, include the totality of your body, but the 7 chakras are like the first go-to place to look and just notice, is there, if there's this there, it's normally, with the throat chakra in particular, fear of letting go is, the primary thing. And so, again, if we go back to that sense that I was speaking about with the body, the body just repeating itself, again and again and again, in, the olden days when, it wasn't always safe to let go, because if you let go and you stepped into a new energy, a new vibration, a new consciousness, a new way of being, you might get thrown out of the tribe. And so the throat chakra has been conditioned to be shut, to protect yourself. Like when I was, when I was a little boy and my father was being maybe overly harsh with us, I'm sure there was times when my mother wanted to speak up and be like, hey, don't talk to those boys. They're just little boys that way. They're not soldiers. Don't be so harsh on them. I'm sure there was many times when she just went because she wanted to keep the marriage intact and didn't want to go into, all-out war with my father. And so she would close her throat chakra and then just gently usher us out of the room. And that was her way of protecting us. And so it's wired into us that the throat will shut. And so, when we have pain in our heart, like we were talking about earlier, sometimes that pain, it starts to open, and naturally it's going to want to come up through the throat, and then express itself out out of your mouth, out tears, out the top of your head. Energy just tends to move up and out. And for a lot of people, when they have that feeling, it's terrifying. There's this fella, he was a newscaster, Dan Harris. Did anyone see this? So he was a newscaster on, like national television. I think he said 40 million people were watching or something. He had a panic attack on air. Just started like going to a panic attack. And he since learned to meditate and like wrote a pretty popular book on meditation. But his throat chakra just opened spontaneously, and all this feeling that he had started to come out, and he felt out of control. And a lot of people will have this feeling like, I'm losing my mind. And so to help the throat chakra open and stay open, again, it goes back to what I was speaking about before. If you can talk to your body, and just gently remind it like, hey, it's okay. It's okay to open. It's okay to relax. It's okay to feel. It's okay. I can remember the first time, my teacher said this to me. I just started crying. And I didn't know what the hell I was crying about. I was crying, crying more, and crying more, and crying, and crying more. But because he loved me, and I felt safe, I knew he wasn't going to tell me to shut up or call me a crybaby. It just kept coming out, and I felt wonderful. I felt wonderful. And so if you can open the throat, through this avenue of trust that I'm going to be okay if I open, and then also just a direct Zen-like experience of safety, like, I am safe. I am safe. And so when you know that, things will start to flow. Things will start to flow. So yes, a beautiful question. Yeah. Did you have a question? Yeah. Are you comfortable sitting there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
So, with the panic attack, is that generally what panic attacks are about? The real bona fide, oh my God.
Yeah, well, are they generally about which?
Just stuff coming up.
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah. So panic attacks almost always are repressed energy, normally from childhood, and we get to a point in our life and it's just like the throat chakra opens and boom, it empties out. Now, a lot of times people get confused by panic because they see something scary, and then, a panic attack comes forward and they blame the scary thing that just happened, But normally it's because we are so full inside. Yeah, and then the scary thing that did happen, that's one of the things, but there may have been 150 other things that were already pressurizing the system. And, then it comes forward. And, the big thing with panic is, I've had, tons of panic attacks. And, I just do this real simple thing. Like if I look at this carpet here, like I've even had, probably multiple panic attacks on this very rug here. And so I just get out on the floor, open the throat, and you breathe deeply. And your body will shake. And, I like look up at the ceiling. And I allow my body to be held. And I notice like I'm totally okay. Tears may come, mucus may pour out of your nose. You may sweat through your shirt or your clothes. But the big thing is to know, like, I'm safe and I can let go. Like, I'm safe and I can let go, and to really trust that.
I feel like I blew my last panic attack.
Well, sweetie, don't worry. Like, it'll come again. It'll come again. You'll be graced with this opportunity of it'll come again. And a different way is through a continual daily practice of meditation, through yoga. Boy, I really have a fun friend here, this fly. But sometimes you can just let out little bits. But I've been on like yoga retreats, and we were doing some yin yoga, and doing some kind of hip openers, and I started just like wailing, and a lot of times as humans we're like, like, oh my God, I can't let anyone see me cry. And it's like, well, what the hell? Like, we all cry, right? Like, we all have emotions. I'm on a yoga retreat. If I can't cry here, it's like, where the hell can I cry? So, and sometimes the teacher's not even trained. They're like, oh my God, is everything okay? It's like, yeah, like, I'm doing great. I'm just having a lot of feeling, and so just to be comfortable.
You grew up ingrained, like you don't cry. Your siblings will,
Yeah, they'll beat the hell out of you. Shut up, or I'll give you something to cry about. That's a fun one, right? Like,
So how to even break that down?
Well, it's kind of like we grow up ingrained with whatever our parents taught us, our siblings, or culture, or and if we want to live in a different way, we have to say no. No to the old, yes to our heart. No to conditioning, no to ego, and yes to innocence. And if we agree with that no, then we just, do what the Buddha said. We just stay on that wheel. And we go round and round. And at some point the wheel gets boring, painful. It hurts too much. And that's the thing with me, is like, this fucking wheel, it hurts too much. It's too painful. I have to find a way off. But the funny thing was I saw clearly that the way off was through more pain, but I knew that pain had an end.
So you mentioned that's like the direct path, but a lot of the direct paths present just who am I?
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of direct path people, they just focus on transcendence. Yeah, and so transcendence is a beautiful thing. The problem with it is if you have a family, a partner, children, a job, a career, in-laws, if you get a disease, if you're a human being in a human body, at some point transcendence stops working, or it stops being effective. And so for me, the direct path is you embrace everything with love and keep opening until you discover you are one with all of life. That's what I call the direct path. So when I'm trying to embrace stuff with love, but I don't feel that love, and we talked about this in a video, but I can't quite remember. You were saying that's when you just give it to God. So last night driving, I could hear all the self-hate, all the unworth, all that, and I was like, nope,
I love you, you know, I love you, but I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, please love this girl for me because
Yeah.
I want to and I can't.
Yeah. I want you to notice if right there when you said, God, can you love this girl? What did you feel in that moment?
I just felt like a opening
Yeah.
in my head, and whenever I talk to God, I feel that.
Yeah, you feel an opening in your head, and then did you notice that little like change in your voice? And there was like a little puff there? Yeah, so that puff was like that throat chakra opening and a little bit of that pressure emptying out. And so it's walking in that direction to where that little puff just becomes, this will sound silly, I puffed open, like I just popped open. And so, yeah, if you can't find it in yourself, I'm a big fan upon calling upon all the love and compassion and intelligence of the universe to come in us and love us. Like, you made me, right? You love me, right? Right? Can you help a brother out? Can you help a sister out? Can you come into me? I feel like I want to put a bullet in my head. Can you help me to relax? Please, 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 to call upon that. And then, like you said, right away you feel just this gentle stream. And so that willingness to open to that stream again and again and again. And as you do so, then you feel held in this world, loved in this world. And then things become so much easier. Oh, he really loves me, this guy, huh?
I haven't noticed it feel like love. It just feels like a great bunch of pressure coming down.
Yeah.
And not love. I just know every time I call upon God, that's what comes in. But it's cool because something's listening. Something's
listening. And if you can start with that, and if you can open to that pressure and see, like, what is this pressure? Can I give this pressure a chance? Can I give this feeling a chance? Can I give this openness a chance? And let it grow. Let it grow. And so, yeah, play with that. Play with that. So, it's a beautiful question. Yeah, Brooke.
So lately with meditation, and it happened today as well, thankfully a little less of the criticizing mind and the judging mind. But as I see that or feel that 360 awareness or the vastness or the all of everything, I feel this, right? My curious mind or my habitual mind, it wants to grasp to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And so that'll come up. And it just goes away. I just thought I might have some insight about that.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things also that the direct path speaks about, and by the direct path I'm speaking about the one that Suzanne was referring to, the transcendent path. They give the mind, they make the mind and the ego the problem, the enemy, like it shouldn't be here. But when you begin to see that the mind is a gift from God, that this curiosity and desire to figure out is literally a gift. Like, if we didn't figure anything out, we'd still be living in caves. We wouldn't have cars, we wouldn't drive, we wouldn't. And so the invitation is to respect the figuring out. but also, to invite it just to relax a little. To relax. The shadow or neurotic side of figuring out is your body, your psychology is telling you you're not fully connected to your direct experience deep in your belly. And so when we're not connected deep in our belly, our mind tends to just be really active. But when we let go in our belly and we connect with direct experience, when we connect with the direct experience of, say, non-dual awareness, sky-like mind, on the level of gut, the mind it's ridiculously empty. But if we connect with vast spacious awareness only in, say, the third eye, but not here, you'll get a glimpse of it, and then this thing will run and say, like, but how do I hold on to this and make it here all the time? Or it'll try to turn it into a philosophy or and connect it. And so, like, when we try to take a teaching and turn it into a philosophy, or say, like, but where am I at on the path? Like, I can remember, I was talking with this fella, Matt Kahn, and we were having an interesting conversation, and he pointed out something to me. He said, Craig, it's when you stop trying to compare or figure out where you are. And then it was like, oh yeah. Like the self-referencing. And I realized that, I had been doing that so much as I really wanted to know where I was. Because the thing that my mind was trying to do in a real innocent way, it wanted to make sure I had all the boxes checked. And if I did have every box checked, then I can relax. But when I realized I can just relax right now and be myself fully, like the checking boxes, it's like, it's like a hell world to be checking boxes. But when you can just let go and be yourself fully, oh yeah. It's not like, you don't realize, like, it's here. It's I'm here. Like, I am this. Not how do I get more into this state. I am. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful question. But it's innocent. It's good to remember that so many times, like, all these parts of our humanity that drive us crazy, they really are innocent. And so many paths, especially in modern times, I guess in ancient times too, is they attack the self, like they attack our humanity. And it's like, who wants to follow a path that makes being human a problem? Like, that is a very fucked up orientation. To think that, okay, God made us human and divine, and I need to have a problem with my humanity. I need to have a problem with my ego. I need to have a problem with thoughts. I need to have a problem, have a problem that I get emotional. I need to have a problem that, my heart is broken because I love someone so deeply. Like, that's a fucked up spirituality, to think that it's a problem to be human. And so one of the things that I'm hoping to bring about is a path that's less violent, on what we are. Because it's a silly thing, like I realized I was doing it to myself. I was just attacking myself again and again and again, like beating the hell out of myself. Like all I wanted was to get rid of myself. If I could just get rid of Craig, then I would be free. And that's crazy. Like literally crazy. It's incredible violence. And I see so many people do it. They're just trying to get rid of themselves. It's like God made us to have the experience of being in form, of being this childlike innocence, to explore this world. And so many of us are just ready just to cut our heads off and be like, now I am non-dual awareness or whatever. It breaks my heart. It's like, gosh, if we're going to be here, can you be here? Can you be the beauty that you are and not make yourself a problem? And so if your mind tries to figure, if it tries to micromanage, you meet it with love. You're like, hey, what you doing? Like, why are you doing that? Can I help you? Can I help you? And it's like, can I show you? There's another way. But you show your mind that from a place of gentleness, from a place of compassion. Because when you do that, then the mind, the ego, it works with you. It gets on board. And then it gets to upgrade. Like it grows up. I mean, all egoic consciousness is, it's simply it's just a stage of consciousness, a stage of development. There's nothing wrong with it in any way. So, that's a beautiful question. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things is that it's like through sadness, through heartache, when you open to it, when you embrace it, we become tender. We discover what true compassion is. True compassion. I felt like pain. And see, it takes a sense of courage to be able to see something like a miscarriage. And not to judge it as wrong or bad, not to say, God, you're an evil God, how could you make this happen? But to open to it and open to that experience in you. And then, you experience tenderness. It's so beautiful. It's like with all these things, like when you truly embrace anger, you find incredible power within you. When you embrace heartache and despair, you discover your indestructibility. And so all these things that, the ego normally thinks are bad, it's not necessarily the case. And so the further we walk on the path, we begin to realize this, we begin to see. And the nature of our mind, which, traditionally is good or bad, right or wrong, highly dualistic, that starts to fall away. And there's this different kind of mind that takes place, where you can look at something like violence or heartache or a disease, and you see this greater, you start having this greater experience with it.
It's like that poem that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, Call Me By My Name. I don't know if you've heard that before, but it talks about a sea pirate and a frog and a snake, and call me by my name to see who I am. The most heinous criminal is me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going home until he goes home.
Yeah.
So this is the feeling that I get. And if you could speak to that.
Yeah. And so there's a couple of different things that came forward there, and so the big thing what you're describing is in a real sense the path of Christ, the path of the bodhisattva. This sense of, I love myself in all. That this is me. This is me. And if you look at, most great teachers, teachers who I consider great, they tend to sit with people in pain all the time. If I can just include myself in that category in the sense that I sit with people in pain all the time. I've lost the thought of, going and disappearing, to my own private heaven world or whatever that is. It's when you see your brother, your sister, yourself in pain, you tend to walk toward them. This is the movement of the heart. It's like when my little girl, when she wrecked her bike the other day, it was like, my God, the two parents could not figure up quick enough. It was like, oh my gosh, what do we do this poor girl? And can we love her? Can we hold her? There was a time on my path when I wanted to just do these, month-long meditation retreats by myself. I even thought about doing the, the Lama retreat, the 3-year, 3-month, 3-day retreat, in silence. But for me, it would have been, it would have been a selfish act to just sit there. Not with my brothers and sisters. And so, this is the path of the bodhisattva. If we even look at things, in terms of the teachings of Aurobindo, his teaching was really similar. He woke up, and he could have went into a cave, and he said, "I'm trying to find a new path that includes all, literally down to matter." That's how deep he wanted the path to go. Not to look at the body and say the body's an illusion, but down into matter. He saw his country suffering. He saw World War I and II. And he said, I want matter to wake up. And so it's a beautiful thing when you hear that call and you jump in. To be honest, the way most people approach spirituality, I want to wake up and be free so I feel better and in my suffering, is incredibly arrogant. It's incredibly selfish. And so many people, oftentimes when they wake up in a transcendent way, they're like, Craig, I am awake. Would you please validate my awakening that I'm awake and the rest of the world is asleep? I'm like, yeah, that's great, but can you allow that? How about can you allow it to include your body, your humanity? And the funny thing is the further you walk on the path, you see that your body is the body of your brothers and sisters. It's the body of the earth. Yeah, and so then there's this love. There's this love for all.
It's interesting. Sometimes on a good day, I'll pull up at a stoplight and I'll see the person next to me on the phone, and I'll just like that's God, man.
Yeah.
And I'll look at the person on the bus stop, and that's God.
Yeah.
And I see someone struggling, they can't walk right or something like that. And it's just like this compassion that comes out in this little exchange during this red light.
Yeah.
And it turns me to go.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's my work.
Yeah.
Like that's my work.
Yeah.
Being at that stoplight and recognizing everything that I see,
Yeah.
living thing, and just opening my heart in that direction, and the word forgiveness is there. I don't understand exactly why it's there, but I know that I need to forgive myself,
Yeah.
and I know that I need to forgive you, because you're probably like me and you can't forgive yourself.
100%. And that's, one of the things that I wanted to bring forward is so through this path, one of the hallmarks of a radical awakening is you have no anxiety about your own humanity. So you see yourself fall, you see yourself trip, you see yourself make a fool out of yourself, you see yourself make a mistake, you say the wrong thing. There's a meanness that comes forward, and you don't judge it. There's no violence toward yourself. You're not like, oh, I'm supposed to be enlightened. I'm not allowed to have a thought, that's out of alignment with truth. No, you see it all with love. And so the more you do it here, like you said, the more you see it everywhere. And there's this funny line, that the Buddha said. It was something I'm probably going to say it wrong in this moment. But it was like he woke up and then he realized, and now, I think oftentimes it said, like he woke up and now the world is awake. But it's like through him waking up, he realized the world is awake. And one of the mistakes I make, and it's not really a mistake, but it's something I do often, is I look at everyone and assume everyone is awake, everyone is enlightened already. And then oftentimes they'll show me some craziness. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let's talk about that, But you see it and you feel it, and you see that truth is there in everyone. In everyone and everything. It's there. And it's a beautiful thing. And so like that thing, that I was speaking about with Brooke, about that sense of comparison, or like, where am I at on the path? Like when there's no thought that I'm awake and the rest of the world's asleep. When your experience is the world is awake. The world is God. The world is the truth. Then, it's like Christ's teaching becomes true. It's the kingdom of heaven is here, is all about the earth. And then he says, yet no man seeth. But it's like you see it. You see it. And then it helps the world to see it within themselves. I mean, we have no idea. We can radically change someone's life just through seeing them. Like I said, at a stoplight. We may change the course of their history just through seeing them. And then please, the funny thing is, and we don't have to take it personally at all that we did something great. Greatness is just happening through us. It's not like it's mine. It's just, that's how evolution works. That's how divinity works. In a sense, we just become a conduit for it. And so it's a beautiful thing. And so, the one last thing I wanted to comment on is anytime I hear someone say, I want to go home, what home really is this desire for peace everywhere. And like you were saying, but you want it with your brothers and sisters. I want it everywhere. And see, that's the movement of God. Is she's like, I'm not going to stop loving. I'm going to love everywhere and everything and always throughout infinity. And so when you open up to that nature, you're opening up to the nature of the Divine Mother in you as you. And it has a different flavor than the Divine Masculine. It has that fully inclusive. But it's an inclusive with tenderness and with connection, whereas Divine Masculine is fully inclusive yet radically empty. And it's good to have both, because if you don't have that emptiness, then things can get really weird. We can get attached to the love. We can get attached to the idea that the whole world needs to wake up right now. Or I'm the Messiah and I need to save everyone.
Yeah.
And I need to, the non-profit worker, the nurse, the midwife, I need to save everyone and everything. If we don't have it balanced with that supreme emptiness, we can get that shadow creep in. And so that's why I like a balanced path. And I mean, that's what God is. God is balanced. God is not out of balance. And so to have both, I can remember, I say this, and some people cringe when I say it, but I was watching the Japanese tsunami that happened, and I saw those waves just come in and just destroy a village. And I saw just absolute perfection. And it's like a brutal thing to say, like if you're drowning in that. But when you step into that Divine Masculine, you see that, and this too is God. Like my own death, this too is God. And there's like just a really bizarre okayness with it.
Even a grace.
Yeah, it's like a grace, and it's. In some places, you'd be right to get slapped in the face for saying something like that, but understandably so, because from like a real human perspective of that's like, that's someone dying. But that too is grace. One of the things that happened when my father died is I fell on the floor, fell in the grass or wherever. I guess it was the floor and then the grass, and he cried. But then there was simultaneously the sense of, and it's totally okay. It's like crying my eyes out, and it's totally okay. It's totally okay. And so, it's a beautiful thing, what you're describing, but very much that, that paints the bodhisattva path, just exactly the way you said it. Too often the bodhisattva path is painted in this real goody two-shoes kind of way. Oh no, you go first. Yeah. So thank you. Anyone else have anything they want to share? Yeah, one of the things about Miss Myrna is she's a diehard practitioner, and that's what I was speaking about earlier. Is sometimes when we practice every day, and we practice with deep sincerity and vigor. Yeah, sometimes you'll be walking down the street and something will just release. It'll just pop and empty out of us. And oftentimes it's just through those years of just loving oneself, seeing oneself, and then something wakes up inside and says, oh yeah, I had this story of myself that wasn't true. Wasn't true. And it's a wonderful thing. It just empties out. And then you get to have that space of freedom, because that part of yourself isn't covered in that veil of whatever the story was. Now what I see is too often people, they do violence to themselves about their story before they've done the inner work. And so they're trying to get rid of their story before it's actually released from their body. And it's just a brutal thing to see. do people do that violence. But when you practice, when you're open, the story will naturally empty itself out of you. And it'll come in a deep and profound way. Whereas what a lot of people do is they take the word story and they make themselves wrong, their humanity wrong, and they try to do some philosophical warfare in their consciousness, like up here in their head. And sometimes they're temporarily successful, which makes them want to do it more. And so what you're describing is, that sense of loving oneself, and then the story naturally releases. And we were speaking about meditation earlier today. And so instead of meditation, ever being about controlling thoughts or getting rid of thoughts, I would hope your meditation practice is about discovering how beautiful you are. Like, that's what it's really about. Discovering your innate goodness, your divinity. That there's something here that's radically pure. But a lot of people meditate in a way where they sit and they think there's something radically wrong with me, which is crazy. It's crazy. Sit with yourself and attack yourself. So, anyways. Is there a fella behind me on a cross?
Yeah.
Is he up there?
He's like, all is welcome. And I'm like,
yeah.
no.
So do you know this fella on the cross lost his shit numerous times? So if the Son of God had the right to be angry, can you give yourself permission? Can you give yourself permission? And do you trust yourself enough that if you let this anger fully be here, you're not going to rip my head off or someone else's head off? Like, do you trust that? I trust you. To let it come fully. And then begin to notice, what is this? And you can ask, what is it about? And if it shows you an old memory or pain or heartache, well, we better meet that with love. And say, yeah, you have a right to be angry. You have a right to be sad. You have a right to be hurt. But I'm going to invite you just to allow it to come. And if it shows you old memories or visions from the past, or even like ripping people's heads off or whatever, just to see it and to trust. Trust yourself. So when I say that, what happens? Like, do you think I'm crazy, or does it sound crazy?
No. Right now I'm just relaxing into what you're saying and being with it.
Yeah. And so with relaxing into it, like when we relax into anger, I want you to feel like a volcano. And then I want you to let yourself explode. And smile, notice nobody dies. You know what I mean by that?
Say again.
You relax into the anger, you
Yeah.
let yourself be a volcano,
Yeah.
you let it explode, and then notice nobody dies. You know why he was so powerful? Because he wasn't afraid of anger. He wasn't afraid of anything. And so spiritual people, we think, I shouldn't be angry. I need to be really quiet. I need to be gentle. I need to be like that one Christ, the Lamb. What was he? The Lamb of God? But that's not really who he was. He was the Lamb some of the time. But can you allow that anger to explode? And what you notice is, holy shit, I'm really big. Like, I'm huge. I'm powerful. And get comfortable with that power. And I trust you, if you get comfortable with that power, you're not going to become, what could people become? Donald Trump. No offense if anyone's a fan, but that you're not going to become a loose cannon. And so one of the most compassionate things we can do with our anger is to say, yeah, I have a right to be angry.
Can I add to this too? So
Yeah, please.
It goes from this anger and intensity
Mm-hmm.
to, and it's a lot of clarity too.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
So there's clarity, and there's flow in life, and there's a lot going on.
Uh-huh.
It's all manageable.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I want you to imagine that word you said, it's manageable, right?
Yes.
And can you allow it to become unmanageable, the anger, and trust. Trust that your heart is big enough to love this. Can you trust that? That your heart is big enough to love the intensity, the rawness, the sharpness, the heat, the fire, the fury of that anger. And so you have to trust yourself.
Yeah.
I trust you. You have a huge heart, and you're not giving yourself enough credit. You have a huge heart. I'm going to use this word. And you are a goddamn spiritual warrior. So can you step into that? Step into that. And I'm not going to bullshit you. It's not easy. Anger is a really frightening thing for most of us. But when you're really open to it, you realize that thing that you're fighting against, like when you open to it, and you become one with it, and you realize you are unstoppable in an incredibly beautiful way. So you play with that, my friend. Yeah, of course. Of course. You know, when Miss Erin walked in, I saw an angel. But when you walked in, I saw a warrior. Shadow side of a warrior is anger. I'm a warrior too, by the way. I have an incredible shadow around drinking and anger. But I can't drink because I'm allergic to alcohol. It's a real gift that God gave me. And I fell in love with anger, and so it doesn't haunt me anymore. But the path of anger, it's interesting. It's opposite of the path of emptiness. It's radical fullness. It's intensity. It's this power that can create universes. It's a really beautiful thing. How many people know that, though? Most people are terrified of anger. And God gave you this because you're so damn strong. And she wants you to figure out that you're stronger than what you previously knew. Fair enough? Yeah. Yeah, so. And it's okay, too, to ask for support. Sometimes when we're a warrior, we don't ask for help. It's okay to have some support.
There's a curiosity about how to hold non-dual and be dual.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, boy, that's a huge question there. So much of it goes back to what I said a little bit ago about zero anxiety about being human. Like zero. So zero judgment. And also a full willingness just to jump in. So you said you do the circling thing, right? Yeah. And I'm not really so well schooled on circling, but I've met a couple like circling folks. And so when you sit with someone, do you feel them inside of you? Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. You feel all of life inside of you. You begin to realize there's no boundary to me, and yet here I am.
How do you function?
It functions through you. Yeah, letting go more. It's just all about trusting. And so that's, the big thing with the mind is our mind, and how would you say that? Like God bless its heart, like God bless its soul. It tries so hard to figure, to function, to do. Sometimes my little girl, I'll pull up in my neighborhood and, sit her in my lap, and we'll drive the car together. And, she thinks she's steering, but it's Daddy who steered. She's going like this, with her hands. And if she goes like this, if she doesn't grip that damn steering wheel and steer us into the neighbor's yard or off the road or into a ditch or whatever, everything's good. But, she trusts. She's just like, yeah, I'm steering, Daddy. I'm driving the car, Daddy, And so it's that sense of, with life. I'm doing life, not, like. Or even, one of the things that happens on the spiritual path is we start bullshitting ourselves about how should I say this politely? We act like we're letting go, but we're not really. And a lot of people do this. They've studied spirituality. They get the systems down, they get the knowledge down, they visit with the teachers, they go on retreats, but they're not really letting go of the steering wheel. And I mean, we all do this, you know, but sometimes when we're intelligent, I'm just going to just say this about you. You're intelligent, you're smart, you're bright. And sometimes that works not in our favor. Is we're like a little too smart for the path. And so it can be helpful just to let go a little bit more and to trust a little bit more. You know, that she will do this through me. Just like when you're in a good circling session, you're not thinking, right? Like no thought. It's just whoosh. And circling, I mean, when I understand it correctly, it can be quite intense, right? Yeah, like big things can go forward. And you just trust. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Like you've studied, you know, I assume the technique or whatever, the presence of it. But then you let go into it. And so it's the same thing with life. We're letting go into it. And letting this thing just step out of the way. And a real, you know, difference, the real marker, like I was saying before, is your heart, like you trust yourself. You trust this world and your belly. You trust yourself, you trust this world. And so when we're smart, we tend to just awareness tends to gravitate up here. And so we have to just, you know, in a sense, like just say, oh, I'm going to try something new, and just allow intelligence to come down here. And just let that move through us. Let that move through us. And you're already doing it. It's just a matter of, you know, like sometimes when we're crazy in ego, like we're holding on so tight. But then a lot of us, you know, through spirituality, we start to let go, but we're still holding on that 20%. But then it's that willingness to be like, oh, no percent. What if I hold on no percent? What's that like?
What's no percent then? What does that feel like?
Thrilling. Thrilling.
I feel like I'm 20. All right, maybe I'm 40. But, you know, no percent?
To hold on no percent feels thrilling. And when you step into that thrill and you let go into it, and then when you pick it up again, 20%, it feels like living hell. It hurts so bad, you're like, that's fucking hot. I don't want to touch that. I don't want to touch that. And so there's great incentive in letting go. Ridiculous. The ego thinks of the opposite. Oh, if I let go, like, oh my God, like, what the fuck's going to happen? Like, what the hell? Like, what really could happen? I would become homeless. I thought I was going to become homeless for 10 years of my life. I wasn't able to pull off homelessness. I just couldn't pull it off. I just could not pull it off. I could not, you know. It just wants to control. And again, let us not make ego the problem. it wants to hold on because it's trained to hold on. We're trained in school, we're trained in our family, we're trained, just through tribal consciousness. And so, basically the ego wants to make sure that when you're in high school, you go to school with your pants on in the right direction. It just want to make sure you behave in a way where you don't get made fun of and picked on. You just succeed in your job so you make enough money. These are good things. But when you realize, I don't need to hold on in a way that's putting a wall between me and all the love in the universe. But the ego, and again, God bless its soul, it's an aspect of animal consciousness. Like that sound. Oh my God. It's an aspect of animal consciousness that's trying to protect us, trying to keep us safe, trying to keep us successful, make sure we're seen in a favorable light. And so it's really helpful. But there's a difference between having an ego and having an ego that thinks it's the ultimate authority. As long as you're a human being, and ego will stay in you in one degree or another. If you see a mountain lion, you are supposed to have a fight or flight response. That is very helpful. Very helpful. But it just doesn't need to be the forefront of our consciousness that's living through us and creating this wall between us and life.